So what was the question you were asking?
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure because I don't want to take anything over. But before I start anything, a lot of this is I want to thank you, and I'm very humbled to be asked to come on this podcast. And I'd be remiss if I didn't add, I got to apologize because even this morning I spoke to my wife and everything that is occurring to me personally and everything I've been through. I really didn't realize when we talk about, if we're talking about behavioral health, family first, the fire department, your own personal life is really what the lack of love my wife thought, I know that she wasn't getting from me because I prioritized, I come from a background of work, provide. As long as you provide for your family, you're doing a good job. That was my household growing up. I was with much love. I didn't have the opportunities what I've given my family, but also the communication with, I've been married for 29 years, ups and downs, a lot of dark places, a lot of happy places, but really not realizing how neglectful I was to the one, that matters the most to me that I thought, hey man, she'll get it, is my wife, Lynn Marie Escobar. Thank you for just being with me, staying with me and supporting me, and my children too, because they do make comments now, especially everything when I'm going through. She goes, well, where are your friends now? So a lot of this, it's horrific what is occurring to me personally, but it's also something good that, I think if I would have kept going at the rate I was at, prioritizing everybody before my family, at the end of the career, I'd be alone.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. And it does make sense. And it's going to tie into, the conversation we're headed into. And to answer your question prior, we were talking about, just focusing on mental health. I don't think this podcast it started like that because it started from, there were like some members who were just falling off like flies, and people were circling the drain. And it started off wanting like a desire to speak up about, some of the hushed voices. And I think collectively as like a hive consciousness of our department, we were feeling things, but there's no voice to amplify what was really going on. And I think as we progress, we're seeing the manifestation of that still. And, I think it's more evolved into like more understanding, putting language to how individuals feel, and not just for the LAFD, more so for, the nation as first responders, because it's not just our department. And I know probably I think it's 70% of our listeners on Grab Lives is mainly other LAFD, not LAFD members.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just nationwide, other firefighters, first responders, dispatchers, peer supporters. And this a lot of came from, going to the peer support group conventions, meeting a lot of people, shaking hands, and people listening to the podcast and seeing the conversations that were had around innovative measures to see what's really going on underneath the surface, underneath, the badge and all that stuff. But it's a great reflection and great open conversations. And I wanted to have you on here because, you were my captain at 26s and gaining a relationship with you, and then watching everything unfold was interesting to watch. And I more so focus on the humanity of each person rather than, the things they have to do and the responsibilities they take on. And for you saying that, brother, I mean, I know you on a personal level where I feel like you are that man where you take that responsibility for your family first in a sense, and I always felt that about you,
Yeah, no, I'm big about, you got to take care of home before you do anything, but looking back now, reflecting back, I personally didn't do that. And I know I encouraged all the members to do that, especially like in today's fire department with our staffing. The guys, I see it in their face. They don't want to come up and say, hey, I can't work this recall, right? And I mean, I'm at the point now in my career and also the leadership at Fire Station 2 is, hey, man, if you can't work, you can't work. We're not going to ask you. We know you're working. Every single member at most the stations, they work. And when they can't, they can't. And we got to move forward. And, it's not that we're not shaming into working, is that They got a life to go live. They got to go to a party. They got to do something. And we still have an obligation to serve those communities. We just need more people. We just we cannot continue to do what we're doing. It is the wheels are off, and now you're starting to break souls and spirits. And that's the reality of what's happening in the fire, not only in the city of Los Angeles, but like you mentioned, it's happening across the nation.
Yeah, I think everyone's really hanging by a thread right now. And I was just having a conversation with someone recently about this. Like, you can only beat a dog so much until it starts biting back. And at this point, there's always this expression too that hurt dogs bite. And it what does it take, until someone starts unleashing? And it's happened. People individually have just hit a breaking point. It becomes too much of a burden to carry. And I think over time, we have to respect that. We have to respect what we're seeing within organization, and always looking not into our own personal victimhood, because that's what really gets us caught up. And the victimhood really removes our power from ourselves. And I really think when we take full ownership of ourselves, our lives, and the way we react to things, that's a really good start for people individually. But we still have to respect the organization in a sense. We're like, hey, what's really going on here? What's the design?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, we are able to provide somewhat of a very, very nice, used to be single income household. We were just talking before we went live what a house costs in the state of California, what a house costs in Long Beach, with dual incomes. You'll be working forever to pay that off. So we're able to provide somewhat of a luxury life. I wouldn't even call it luxury life, an okay life in the counties where we serve in the city of Los Angeles. But it's becoming more and more difficult on that stuff. And now we have an obligation to our employer, city of Los Angeles and the residents we serve. But at what cost?
Right.
Is really the question. And before, because, I'm coming at the end of my career and really looking at it, the number one cause of LODD, line of duty death, in the fire service is suicide. And before I used to be, hey, suck it up, buttercup, right? Marine Corps attitude, the way I was brought up, my family, everything. But if you really sit down and look at it and start questioning yourself, man, imagine the spirit, the soul that person is to do what he's done to himself or herself, and the hurt he or she's been. And for none of us to recognize that, you start questioning, do we really know one another? So all that stuff is starting to play with me at the end of my career of trying to, influence the guys that I'm around with, because that's who you get to influence is the 6 guys, and prioritizing your family. Hey, we still got an obligation to do. Let's try to do the right thing. Let's try to take care of our 6 walls, and let's try to help those who need help that we're aware of.
Yeah, that's a very common theme, is taking care of what's within the 6 walls, because there's nothing else you really can do at that point. So just take care of what's within your reach, and that's a responsibility as a leader to inform others that that's your priority. And so you make sure that that's their priority too, to ensure that. And that's kind of like a really core value within each individual station. And they have to have proper leadership in order to instill that as like a blueprint to anchor off of. Because if you don't remind these members, then, people can feel in isolation. And that's usually how that trickles down into someone just going into a psychotic state, hit a breaking point, and then whatever else is going on, that's whatever else has landed on their plate, whatever call volume they've been burnt down on. And I think overall, that requires, I guess, continuity, with not just yourself as a leader, but others within the other stations, things like that. And, I am curious about how long you've served as a Marine.
Oh, wow. So total was 9 years.
Okay.
Right. Total was 2 years active, did 7 years, was part of Desert Storm, Desert Shield. I mean, I love it. It most definitely, when we went in, and we talk about the members, the friends that I went in with, we all went in there, to pay for us to go to school, to get an opportunity to go to college and be ahead of the game. And fortunately for myself, That, I knew I was either going to be a Marine Corps officer or I was going to be a firefighter. I had an older cousin. I'm first generation. I was born and raised. I was raised here. I was born in Guayaquil, Ecuador. My mom is Ecuadorian. My dad's Colombian, and he brought us here to this country. Right. My siblings were born here, and we love it. We landed in the MacArthur Park area. That's why it's so close. My dad's side of the family still lives there.
No shit.
Yeah, my mom's side of the family lives in the city of Downey, and that's where we ended up doing middle school and high school with. So the community of Los Angeles County and the city of Los Angeles is very close to me, and I was very fortunate to get hired. They had a consent decree in 1989. I didn't even know what that was. They gave me points for being in the military. They gave me points for being Latino. And I'm like, shit, all right, man. They're going to give me points. I'll take them.
Yeah.
And, literally a year and bam, I'm off and running. I had my 21st birthday in the drill tower, what we called Westlake at the time. Mm-hmm. I had a class of 12. So imagine 12 guys. And you look back at them, John Garnica, Eric Amos, Oscar Arguelles, Reed, rest in peace, Gus Perez. Mm. We had a lot of guys. If you look at them, I'm like, oh shit, I guess, we were all minorities, didn't think about it. And a lot of us were in the service. So, we talk about brotherhood and sisterhood. We never really knew at that, like, what's a consent decree? Mm-hmm. They give us what? I didn't learn this until later in my career in the fire service. So I started the fire department. I was an explorer for the city of Downey. And I was also an explorer for LA County. So I went through their drill tower right before I went into the Marine Corps. And fortunately, LA City called and I stayed with them. And it's going to be, it's 37 years last month on the LAFD. I got 16 more months. Very fortunate. We have the drop program and I'll be walking out the doors. So yeah. And when I made the decision, I've always been involved in the union. And I got a funny story on that if you want to go there. Yeah. So I got in 2 accidents when I was driving truck 11, back-to-back shifts, first shift, second shift. And one of the locals, they were both drunk. We're actually in the same location. We were heading eastbound on Wilshire, heading back to Bonnie Bray, right? And then making that ride on Bonnie Bray. And both times, these locals, they were intoxicated, ran into the truck twice, back-to-back shifts. And I was pissed. And so, they do the 620 package. You go in there, they were doing the investigation. And the day that they were coming to give me the investigation, I had to rep, but I won't say his name, but they called him 3-day, whatever his last name is, because he averaged 3 days off. And I said, well, I didn't do anything. I wasn't driving. So he comes in, he goes, hey man, I got great news. They're going to give you a reprimand. And I said, for what? I go, I wasn't even driving. They crashed into me. No way. I'm not going to sign that. And it was more of the point. I go, I was not driving. I don't care what management says. This is wrong. Fortunately for me, I was driving a gentleman by the name of Juan Albron. Juan Albron is a retired Captain 2 out of Fire Station 26. Did 17 years there. He's also awarded Firefighter of the Year. He was our Relief Association president. So he always gave back to the fire department and somehow, and always encouraged us to do something as well. He didn't care what it was. Just give back a little bit, right? Be thankful, give back a little bit. So I was upset and running my mouth, and he used to call AOs arrogant and obnoxious. That was, and Captain 3s, right? So if you guys from the city, you guys get it. And so I was pissed, and he told me, stop. That guy ran for office. He was voted by his peers. He's taking time away. Don't say anything. If you want to say anything, go ahead and run and make a difference. Other than that, this is what you get. That was pretty profound, right? And I respected him tremendously. I used to call him dad, but he's more like an older brother. And so time goes by. I said, hey, do you mind repping me? He ended up repping me that day. He went and did his magic, went in service, found my driving records, never been in an accident. reduced everything, right? And I was very thankful. I transferred from 11s to 26s, and the spots to run for the union come up, and he slides them over to me. He goes, all right, AO, you want to make a difference? Here it is. And I've always been involved in the union since day one on the job. And a lot of guys that have time on will remember this. A lot of guys that I've heard this. We used to get paid on Wednesday, like we do today, but with hard checks. So when the hard checks would come, the battalion would drop them off at their prospective stations. We would go ahead and put them in alphabetical order in the grapevine. And then the guys would call up and just say, hey, my wife is coming. She's in a green station wagon. Give her the check, right? Sure enough, wife would come up. We'd give them the check and move forward. So we did that on Wednesdays. And if you were off on a Wednesday, you would go down to the union hall, go listen to the union, what's happening, have a beer and have a breakfast, whatever that they offered at that time. And then they all go back to the station and grab their check and go home. So a lot of that occurred. And so as a rookie, that's what we did, right? The guys are going, they invited you, you sat there and listened, and then you went back to the station and did the rookie stuff at the station. So we've always were introduced into the union stuff in 1989 at that capacity. Morph into today, right? We get everything online. You know when your deposit is on Monday or Tuesday, whatever it may be. So when Juan asked me to run, he goes, hey, run or shut up, right? Pretty much. And I wanted to be a reflection of the majority of the membership. Majority of us want to do the right thing, want to come into work, want to learn our craft, want to do the best thing for the community. In every large business and corporation, you're going to have 10 to 15% of individuals that are just going to have the FU attitude. And you do. We all know them. We know who they are. It just happens. It's going to happen. And so my goal was to be a reflection of the majority of the members and find out what this union was about, not knowing for 2 decades, right, 20 years, I'd be involved in the union. And I love it. Even to what is occurring to me personally today, I wouldn't change it for the world, right? Even this, and I'm not a biblical man, but these things are happening for a reason. Like I mentioned before, I recognize my wife. I believe this is happening because I believe if I would have still been going on that all about UFLAC, all about them first, at the end of my finish line, I'd be alone. So I believe all that has a reason biblically that's played into it. But how I got involved, and that's what morphed into 2 decades of it. And then when I decided to run for president, I reached out, who I believe is a phenomenal leader, Chung Ho, my main man. And I said, hey, I'll do this with you because, we're very fortunate. We're very successful. But he was the brains behind it.
Yeah, I like to, like I was telling you before, I like to see the design around things. I always saw like each department is kind of like a sports franchise. You have like the mayor and the city council. They're kind of like the owners of the association. And you have like the coaching staff, and which is like in reflection of like the chief and the command staff. And then you got the players, right? The firefighters, the ones that are like on the court or on the field. And like a lot of times, decisions are made all the way up top, and players get traded, things get things get all weird and lost in translation of like the big picture. And it's just kind of really fascinating to observe instead of getting sucked into it, you know what I mean? And to have a different perspective of how things are kind of taking place. But the union kind of is a part of the association, the players association, to kind of help the players understand their role in the bigger picture and to kind of push them into like, hey, if you need to do something, this is what you need to do in order to instill your value on the court or the field. And they played such a huge role in how we understand contracts, how we understand how we get paid, how we understand punishment, things like that, discipline. And I'm sure, I was going to ask you like what your leadership costs you personally as a union president, and you've already said a lot of that stuff. It costs you your family, your relationship with your children, and I'm sure that that's a lonely place to be when you're taking care of people who need to get paid and do the same thing for their own families. And I think people just don't understand what it costs to sit in that chair, and like being a part of sitting in that chair requires like a burden to carry, So I'm really curious about what that burden felt like when you had to make objective decisions, based off what that 15%, which I think that 15% is probably a little more now, maybe like 35, 40% who like are kind of like, fuck you,
Yeah, no. And it's hard because I try to stay away from negativity. If you know me, try to be positive and it's difficult. And that's a tough, very difficult question. So fortunately, through the leaders that I saw and worked under, Pat McCosker, I mean, you talk about a bulldog who went in there and fought. I mean, he just fought, but to a point where it was probably rude at some times, but that was the era of that time. And I understood it because being in the military in the 80s, I understood how they treated you and everything. Hey, you went on. That's just the way it is. And then that morphed into Frank Lima, which, up to a year ago was probably one of my best friends. I would have died for the guy. I would have believed everything he said. And then Tony Gamboa and then myself. Those are the leaders that I had. And one of the things I did when I became president, and which was easy, I grabbed people way smarter than me and I surrounded myself with them and professionals. Jimmy Blackman, Jessica Nasor, and Irma Pomposo. Hopefully I pronounced her name correctly. They're part of the JB&A team, or professional consultants. And I told them, what do we need to do to be very strong and get the best because that was the number one thing, best contract for the membership, and how do we build a relationship with city council? That was one. The other one is I never did anything, and I can say this, never did anything without the executive board approval. So nobody could say on the board, Freddie's doing this on his own, which if you see what's happening today, that's what's occurring today. And those are advices I gave acting President Coates. Don't do anything without executive approval. Brian Quigley does a good job, but he shouldn't be chair of anything. And Jason Powell comes with a lot of baggage. So it becomes difficult when you start going away from that advice, and look what we're at today. You can't do anything. So when you talk about the burden, I was the punching bag, but I knew my executive board, who represents the membership, gave me thumbs up. And the easiest one and the most, probably one we could probably spend a whole day talking about, is COVID. COVID really started of what's occurring today. I mean, it destroyed friendships, families. Look what it did to the city, the state. Look at the homelessness as part of COVID, if you really think about it. And for us, my position was, hey, man, I don't think anybody should lose their job over this thing. This is about the craziest thing. We, UFLAC, spent over $1 million in litigation on this. We turned every single stone. And even when we went, they talk about contracts. We had a phenomenal contract. And we went back to the membership, asked them to defer that because we allegedly was going to be this, financial deficit. Remember, everyone thought it was going to be worse than 2008. In 2008, we saw a lot of members lose their house. Went to the executive board. This is what's at the table. Do you guys want to go? Yes or no? So we take it back to the membership. So when you talk about the burden was more of the punches and now social media with the way it is, how I'm going to get beat up. And I'm okay with that. That doesn't, sticks and stones. But the burden of it really wasn't there because I went to the executive board, and I expected the executive board to filter out all the personalities that are on there to find out and come out with the decision and democracy, and then we move forward. And one of my best boards, and I can't remember the year, we had Selwyn Lloyd, Randy Useless, Domingo Albaron, right? Ken Koffler, Chung Ho, Dave Riles, Adam Van Gerpen, Adam Walker. You had strong personalities in there. and they would go at it. I mean, like, F you. And I'd say, okay, you guys done or do you need more time? Okay, we're going to vote. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, you guys done? Next. It's all done. We put it behind democracy. Sometimes it favored the guys that wanted it. Sometimes it didn't. But the democracy was there, and they gave me the direction on how to go. That's how a board is ran. And then you bring in your professional consultants, and they give you their opinions as professionals. And then we make a decision. That's how we were successful for my last 8 years.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I just had a conversation with a guest on the podcast, and he's the union president currently, and saying trying to please everyone is impossible, and getting agreements to be done is his goal, and so he has to put that on the side, like trying to please everyone, because you're never going to. In the end, you want to look at the bigger picture and how to see things like later down the road, and agreements you're going to make. But he was saying that the wars are always inevitable. You have a war within the membership. You have a war within like the management, like the chiefs who are requiring operational flexibility. And then you also have the politics. And that can be another war within one city council member who's just not in agreement with what's going on or whatever it is. Those are the three things he was mentioning, which I found to be, it helps me to understand things a little more, for a personal person who's sitting in that seat. And also even people who are listening who don't understand the responsibilities of a fire department, especially a department like the city of Los Angeles, right? I think the city is probably funneling around $1 trillion a year. We just don't see those numbers on paper. And because this department's the second largest department in the nation, and we're just heavily involved into politics, we get sucked in by the politics going on because of all the media, things like that. And for members to actually want to get involved, I'm seeing less of that now, and I'm very curious about like no one wants to get their hands dirty anymore. It seems like a goddamn headache. You know what I mean? And I'm very curious, like, what's going to happen with the next generation. Who's that torch going to get passed down to? And I'm very curious how that's going to manifest.
Yeah, I mean, we had a succession plan, and obviously, like you said, COVID. They had your firefighters for freedom that came in, and they got a few members in there that came in. And I mean, if we're going to be very candid, let's be candid. Doug Coates came in as the second vice president with zero experience. His first term as second vice president, he came down to the union time on his own day off 0 times, right? So there was it's kind of like a rookie, right? He's got no initiative. You're not going to go out there and, all you could do is tell him, hey, come down here, come explain. I'm going to explain to you, but you got to show a little bit of initiative, man. You got voted in by the members. There's no way to kick you out, but show initiative. So we had a succession plan, and part of it wasn't just because these guys had interest in it. When I decided to run for president, I was with Joe Lopez at Fire Station 26. He was my captain too. I said, hey, let's go for chief. I said, all right, let's do this, right? And so then at that time, we weren't seeing eye to eye with then President Tony Gamboa. And I said, the only way that I would run is if I get support of the executive board. Because I understand leadership roles. I've been in them my whole life through the Marine Corps. I've been very fortunate to learn and understand the 13 leadership traits that I bring into the station, that I, surrounded myself with guys that had those traits as a young firefighter, a young fireman. And I take those into today. And I wish I would have done all this stuff to my family too. So there's a lot of regrets I'm having on this. But to go back on this is you need people that want to do it and have a passion to do it, and they do it for the right reasons. And I truly surrounded myself for the most part with the majority of the board for that. It was about the guys. And I mean, I was even at the point where if you talk about this bond measure is something, and I'm not a me person, but whoever, I can't even remember who was at the bar, came up with the idea because LA County came up with the measure. And LA County Executive Board, my best friend sits on the LA County Executive Board. His name is Jason Cervantes. I'm good friends with Dave Gelati, who's their longtime president. You know, I know their current executive board and knew their past executive board very, very well. So when we were talking about this bond measure, I'm with Jimmy. I'm like, hey, why can't we do that? We're a chartered city. Well, let's look into it. So this was 2 years in the making. And I said, hey, this is going to be my last term. Let's leave with drop the mic. We leave it better than when we got it. We'll have a succession plan and we will move forward. Right. And that's kind of that was the plan at it. I said, and the bond measure morphed into, hey, let's do it. Let's do a 10-year bond measure. Well, then I was like, when we were in negotiations, we're always fighting for what guys should have, right? The bare minimum. What can we put in place in perpetuity? So member who sits in this seat as a president doesn't have to deal with the burden of trying to find money in this general fund. Like today, the mayor spent $300 million of general fund on homelessness.
I think it's more than that.
No. No, but it is more than that, but
Yeah.
$300 million came from the general fund.
Mm.
There's a pot of gold that taxpayers are doing just for the homelessness. And, you know, guys are big. They got big hearts in LA City. They have money designated, but this money of the pie came from the general fund, which irates me because there's already money designated for the homelessness. And we all have a caring heart for the homelessness, but to sacrifice at what for our end, for the members that we represent, the safety of the members, the inside members, getting more people for relief, have a proper staffing fire department, all that stuff. Mm. So when we talk about secession, you got to have people that are doing it for the right reasons. And a lot of it right now, I go back to the COVID days, and a lot of people live out of state. And if you worked around me, and can I use foul language on here?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, well then, John, it was very easy. I said, hey man, I give a shit where you live. I care, but I don't care. A lot of people live in Idaho. Hey man, you know what? Go to Idaho. Great, you're there with your family. Hey man, you're hardcore Republican. You got your guns, all that. That's awesome. But when you come back in the city of Los Angeles, the majority of the membership, I understand, is moderate to conservatives. I get it. I'm a registered Dem. I have nobody in my party. All these guys have gone far, 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 far left to a socialist point, and I respect that too. But that's not my party. My party is a working class, moderate, common sense. Let's move forward, right? We no longer have that in city council. So when you come in back into California from those prospective states, Texas, Idaho, Tennessee, it is very difficult. There's different rules. My kids live in Arizona. I get it. But you come in California, in the city of Los Angeles, we're very progressive. And you got to live within those rules. You cannot fight city council. You're not going to be successful. And I see that right now with the current leadership of UFLAC. And that's what's happening right now. Mistakes have been made, and that, they're saying, hey, I don't want them to succeed. It's not that at all. I've advised them. They have not taken my advice. You can't go and do a video and say, make UFLAC great again. It's funny, at the kitchen table, but if you're an adult and city council knows about that, we have members that have families that work for the city council, that are related to city council, they see that. And so what do they say? Is that UFLAC is being ran by, out-of-state white supremacists, which is not the truth at all, yeah. But that's the way they look at it. And that's the way it is, man. There's two things you can't do in the city of Los Angeles. Yeah. And I'll say it here, man. You can't tell the truth, and you can't be white, because it's crazy.
Yeah, well, we have to take a look at how severe the polarization had become after COVID, or even during COVID, because, and I think just the polarization is what really caused an uprising within each individual member, because it started to attack people's values, their personal values, and when that happened, there's it even got down to identity crisis. type situations where now you have everything on this side of the table and you have everything on this side of the table. And that started to just unravel everything within each individual member in the department and within the city. And it just caused an uproar where everyone's in conflict now. And I think these things are just symptoms of something deeper. You know, a lot of these things are based off of the unmet needs, fear, power and arrogance, and all self-interest. And these are the real problems where when you're trying to run a union, you can't just allow your political self-interest to get involved. You got to look at the people's unmet needs first. And that's when you start to create trust and you establish continuity and you establish cooperation when people feel there's trust being established. And this even goes into, into management and the chiefs and those things. We require that from the command staff, or else these workers, the players on the field, you're not going to have that continuity in place, and they're not going to have their best abilities on the court when it's game time. And for us working in a city, like we go on the craziest incidents, compared to any other firefighter in the city and like the whole nation. Some guys will work in a career, they'll never see the stuff we see in about a week. And we have to honor the fact that these members are showing up with bleeding hearts and their abilities that are just on top level tactical athletes. And I think there has to be some type of continuity and a way to create that trust factor again, that rebuilding of trust.
Yeah, and it's going to happen. Is it going to take time? Yeah, absolutely. It's going to take time. It's going to take the right leaders and people to be candid and people move forward from what's happening today, the allegations of misappropriation of money, all that stuff. It's going to take time. Now, you talk about building the trust. If you followed what the union told you to do during COVID, you would have kept your job. Right? Firefighters for Freedom was built. That was a good thing. Kudos to them to move forward and all that stuff. But they haven't won anything in litigation on it. And for me, it was mind-boggling to me. I said, the city of Los Angeles is the only city in the state that has a mandate.
Yeah.
It's like about right? Yeah. So it was like...
Just to reiterate what that is, it's basically we had a vaccination mandate within the city, and basically if you did not get that, you were going to get fired. So that's what Freddy is talking about right now, if anyone understands.
Yeah.
And the Firefighters for Freedom was an organization to inhabit what the value is behind like our rights and our ability to stand against it.
Right. And they paid $500, collected a lot of money, spent it on attorneys, and we did the same thing with the union money. Let's turn every stone. And I respected everybody's position on that. I even gave our legal counsel. Our legal counsel told us we're going to spend a lot of money, and this is what the outcome's going to be. The executive board approved the expenditure and knew the outcome was going to be. And I said, hey, we still got to do it because it's the right thing to do for the membership that believes that they're violating their constitutional rights, because that's what it came down to.
Right.
And so when we were doing this, I reached out to then friend, Frank Lima. I said, hey, man, we got to have dinner with Garcetti, and we got to make sure that he doesn't fire any of our guys. And that's where the relationship comes and the politics comes. So you have these conversations with decision makers. Then you have them with the general manager, which was the fire chief, and then it was Chief Terrazas. I said, hey, you got to approve these exceptions. And then he goes, well, who am I to approve them? Exactly. You approve them. Approve all of them. I don't care what it is, right? So let's move forward. But you got to have that trust and everything off there. If you don't have relationships, and again, you have to have relationships with management. You have to have relationship with city council to be effective. If not, you're going to be on the menu. They're going to eat you up and spit you out all day long. And look what's happening right now. And that's the reality of it. It breaks my heart of what's occurring. So during COVID, we went and had dinner with Garcetti. And there was even a video that they have Frank Lima, myself, and Garcetti at this place. It was off of, I think, Beverly Boulevard, some Italian place that Garcetti loved to go to. And it was a discussion about what we're talking about. Hey, this is what I need. We can't put it in writing. We can't do anything. I want to be able to do this. I told the mayor, this is ridiculous. We're a chartered city and mandate. He goes, well, you guys should believe it. I said, okay, we do believe in it, but there's members that don't believe in it, and you got to respect them too. And I kind of told him, like, you want us to believe A, B, and C of all this progressiveness. Well, you got to believe A, B, and C of all of our members that are very conservative as well. So we were able to have that dialogue, be mature about it, come up with the plan, and a plan that we all gave our words, and it occurred. The exemptions were all approved. We moved on, and unfortunately, there was 4 to 6 members that went through a board of rights and got terminated because they didn't want to put in an exemption. And I know that then Secretary Walker reached out to those guys and said, hey, man, have them put in. I know I got a personal friend, two people that I personally know, said, dude, put it in, man. What do you put it in? Put in that you don't care. You don't believe in the vaccine, So put something in so it could get approved, because they approved every single exemption. So that part of it was difficult. And I felt like, just one member being removed was wrong. Nobody should have been fired for this stuff. But those were out of, but if you listen to the union and put in your exemption, remember we were testing? So doing some stuff with I used to tell the dudes, I tell them, hey, dude, put your butt in it. Well, yeah, give it to me. Do something, because it's about the dumbest shit.
Yeah.
It was dumb. So that trust you need to have that relationship with city council, your city leaders, and you have to have relationship with management to move forward. I truly believe if I was still in charge right now, there's no way we'd be involved in any type of letter of agreement not being signed. There's no way, because the fire chief has a lot of authority. One thing I learned during COVID, the city charter gives authority to the fire chief under the administrative code. That administrative code, in layman's terms, says you run the fire department as you need to serve the residents of Los Angeles. So he has a lot, and we just lost a, I believe it's a mediation we're at right now, or scheduling it. I don't know where we're at on it, on the letter of agreement. Essentially, the bad part about it is the fire chief could impose last best offer or something similar to that with no sunset clause, which means he could have it forever, right? And so a lot of the times, and one of the things I was very proud of, we never went into that, because there's always a medium what we could do. So there's, in this like specific assigned hire letter of agreement, there's no new language on discipline. There's no new language from the rules and regs. So it was something that just didn't, the 3 guys didn't like, or the executive board didn't like. I'm not sure, because I'm not in those conversations. But if I was there, I'd go and have a conversation, go by the fire chief. Let's go to lunch. Let's go to dinner. Let's just talk about it, whatever the case may be, right? But I'd keep the receipts, because I've learned my lesson, and have better documentation, and find out where can we meet for the men and women of the LAFD to give them predictability so they could plan to be with their families. Because that's what ultimately it's about. It's about those members, and nothing against the out-of-state guys. But they come in, and I've been exposed to a lot of them in Battalion 1. They're phenomenal. The Captain 1s, because they're all Captain 1s that I work around with in Battalion 1. I mean, you can't tell the difference from day 1 to day 9 or 10 that they're there. They do a good job. They care about training. They do this. They're not negative. They're zero. They're good. Those are what I'm accustomed to. But they're not affected by this, because they're here for, that run. So when they go home, they go home.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot to ingest.
Yeah.
And to even understand and grasp with relationships with the chief, the city council, the mayor. And that's why I was explaining, like trying to break it down for people to understand it. It's like a sports franchise, it's just like easier to ingest, because there's so much going on, and something so important, like, your employment based on a decision with a vaccination, right? That's just a clear example of like a clear relationship issue within the city council and the mayor where a decision has to be made to keep members employed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the COVID thing was huge, globally, where people started to reevaluate who they were and their position and how they saw themselves as employees. And like from that, I think for our department, there was a lot going on where when we got out of that portal, we'll call it that, everyone was just like left scarred, from just the call volume and the way things were ran internally of each stations where, wearing our masks and all that stuff. And then people were in fear. The citizens were in fear they wanted to know if you were vaccinated. Mm-hmm. It's this whole strange thing built on fear. And from that, everyone was super burnt out at the point where all the hospital staff were burnt out. Everyone that we're in contact with were burnt out. And so we're still dealing with the aftermath of people feeling extremely burned out. And when we're talking about, letters of agreement for, filling the seats, right? Because that's what we got to do. People are still feeling not recognizing that burnout was only 5-6 years ago, right? And that burnout, I think, over time has to get looked at and respected for individual members for, their value and how they see themselves, boots on the ground, right? And that's what we always say. And I think over time, the relationships with these members and the mayors and things like that, they don't address the fact or even value the fact that these members have been burnt out from that time period. And I think that's something to be spoken about and for me to speak like for the masses on this. And that's kind of what each individual is kind of feeling. Does that make sense?
No, for sure. And it's hard because, the way that city council, because I know how they think, mm-hmm. right? I mean, they were transparent at California. They could look at our salaries and everything and all that stuff. And if you really look at it, hourly, we're not paid that much,
right?
Compared to other unions, other employments, right? We're there 24 hours. We're away. Nothing ever happens when we're at home. It happens when you're at work. And so the separation of the city council and the boots on the ground and getting all this stuff is simply either change the algorithm, hit that degraded mode like tomorrow, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's about let's just do it. But there's a risk management side to it. And adding new resources, adding new staffing, which this bond measure will help if passed appropriately by the right percentage. That's the only way. If not, we're going to be continuing that hamster wheel, chasing, because what we need is more. I came on the job in 1989. We had more staffing then, and we were averaging 500 runs a day. 500 runs. We're doing 2,000 calls with less fire resources, less rescues, and 4 million people. It's not sustainable.
Yeah, it's not.
So with this, we got this new leave, the KL leave, which is phenomenal. If you have a kid, I would love to have that when my kids were born, right? To be home, that's phenomenal. You have members that are off IOD and IOD. One of the things in the city of Los Angeles, our full authority positions, I think with the next 2 drill towers, we're tapped out, right? So all these, super duper units that we have, they're not authoritative positions. They're hired by V hours. Mm. So we need to get authorities for all these positions so we can add more members. We need to double, triple our fire department. That's the only way in the city of Los Angeles we're going to have any type of work relief at the busy stations. If you're up in the hills, sweet, right?
Right.
Great. But if you're in the hub, if you're on a rescue, I don't care where you're at on the rescue. It is, man. They're coming from everywhere.
Right.
We just need more. And the only way to get more is to get more authoritative positions. And the budget is so big and we don't have that. It's proven. 2 decades of doing this stuff. Only way to change the working conditions is going to be this bond measure, period.
Yeah, I think the feeling really is the fact that each individual person feels like they're a cog in the wheel. It's like the machine's going to keep going. this giant man-made construct. It's a living organism, if we want to see it like that. It has to run. You know what I mean? There's no way we're going to get around that. And when you feel like you're just a pawn on the chessboard being moved around, I think that takes away from our humanity, and that affects us individually. And that even the administrative betrayal we can experience. It's been mentioned before how that can become a core wound for individuals, where it's like we feel as if we're not seen, we're not heard, we're not respected, and everyone's out for themselves. And that's where that has to mend something back together as a cohesive giant unit where everyone feels that value within themselves. And I think as I started to work more with the behavioral health side of things and understand what everyone's seeing, what everyone's feeling, not from our own department, but for other departments, they feel the same thing. And each individual worker feels that same wound. And wounds are hard to tend to. Over time, it can heal, but everyone feels a lack of trust with that, and they feel a sense of betrayal. And I'm sure you are very familiar with the word betrayal. So
Yeah.
I am curious around your thoughts around, first of all, administrative betrayal. How can you put some language or words around how people feel that and why they feel that? I'm sure you felt that even before, right? You got an accident. You felt, hey, no one's going to protect me or look out for me. And you're given a message, well, do something about it. So I'm very curious just to talk about administrative betrayal and then talk about some betrayal you've experienced the last year or so.
Well, that one's an easy. The administrative betrayal, it's another one that's difficult for me because, I'm like I said, I'm first generation here. My dad and my mom provided us a household of much love, right? A lot of love, and really not realizing the financial burden that they had. We didn't know that in our household. We always had food on the table. My dad always worked. There was always love. And, us kids started working at 15 or 16. And my dad always said, hey, school, do this, go to work, stay out of trouble. So when you talk about administratively, my disappointment is probably like the double standards that I've seen throughout my career, through various types of, leaders, because there is a double standard, and there is, friends of, John Vargas or friends of Freddy Escobar. There is a double standard. And I feel that if you're going to have a double standard, when you're a chief officer and you're in trouble, you should be then burdened with more punishment because you should know better and you should be an example and all that. It doesn't happen that way. It happens the other way to the guys with boots on the ground. That's my disappointment. And the disappointment too is, the PSD for us, the Professional Standards Division. I don't think giving time off people cure behavioral correction. I don't believe that. I believe if you give me an opportunity and you want to work for me, say I work for you at 92s and you did something, which I know you wouldn't do, but let's just say hypothetically you did something wrong on the rescue. You purposely didn't do it or anything. And I find out what it is. Let me have a one-way conversation with you. Make sure you don't do that instead of going down the route of getting days off. I don't think we get anything out of that. I think educational base, a good all-American Marine Corps ass chewing, you'll go further because I believe members going to say, hey, man, this captain took care of me. This captain gave me a lesson. He could have gone A, B, and C, and he didn't, right? Because once you lose money, who's it affecting? Your family. And that's not right. We're human beings. We make mistakes. So I believe unless it's so egregious, you go in through the discipline of getting days off. Other than that, it should be educational based, and let's go ahead and take care of our guys. That's just my personal opinion on the administration side of it. And when we talk about administration and emergency operations, right? You could be operating an aerial. Something happens, something damage. You go through a tree. They do an investigation. They blame you. You got to do this training and everything. Well, all of us know this in the city of Los Angeles. What happens to a chief officer if he misses a Mayday?
I have no idea.
Nothing. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and to me, that's a pretty big deal. So I think that we need to revisit how we do complaints or issues with members, empower the stations. Yeah, is it going to be different? Yeah, I'm going to be different than you if you're an officer. But I think we know our members. I think we could correct our behaviors at our members. And the punishment may be, you know what? You don't belong at this station. Thank you for the 1 year. Here's 105 different stations you could work at. And surround yourself with people that want to do the right thing. Not that I'm saying 10 and 15, you said 30, 40. I hope it's not 30 and 40. I may be blind to it. Because if we start getting to 30 and 40, now the good people that do the right thing are giving up in the city or into what right is for the city of Los Angeles.
Well, I mean, the double standard does make sense. And what I'm coming back to on the core wound of administrative betrayal is the fact that we feel like we're within a bigger system and you're just a side piece. You know what I mean? That's really what that comes from. And that's I think that's something to recognize and to honor and respect. But a lot of it also comes from like our individual self-interest with that as well. You know, like our own stuff is a reflection of why we feel that way. And this goes into when you're talking about PSD, when you have a member acting out and when you're slapping someone with discipline instead of trying to figure out why a person reacted that way or why that person acted that way, is really like where you're going to cure the issue and solve the problem, because there's something deeper that's going on when someone's acting out in that way. And so it's more to take care of that individual to see, hey, what the hell's going on here? And then they'll pour their hearts out like, oh, I got this, that going on, and I just flipped. And that's what's happening a lot. And a lot of these stories, when I started getting involved with the union, I started hearing crazy stories that no one had ever heard of to keep, you know, people's privacy in place, but not just realizing how crazy, you know, things were getting out of control with individuals just hitting a breaking point, you know? And I think that's what's happened over time when it's tough for management to not, to just value and honor that, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, hey, the show must go on. So what do we do?
And it's hard because management has a duty to the residents of Los Angeles.
That as well.
Right? And but they also have a duty to us to respect and honor and listen to us. And it comes from, you know, different eras. Like when I was a rookie, it was a true paramilitary organization. Hey, grab your shit. You're going to this fire station. Sir, yes, sir. You didn't go up there. Hey, Captain Vargas, why am I going there? What's going on? You just showed up. So we morphed into what we're in today. You know, we got to adapt and overcome. And it's tough. That's a tough question. I mean, it's the best I could answer it. And everybody's going to have different challenges. Now, fighting the administration is not the answer. You need to have a relationship. Hey, find out what the fire chief wants, why he wants it. Okay, then you're going to realize he has 99.9% authority to do what he's doing. And then, okay, how do we get there? What's the best way to do it? To accomplish, and the reason, you know, the fire chief was so successful is that they brought the union on board. They brought the executive on board, but that's not what's happening today. And so you're able to send that message out and people would hold on to it and move forward. Like for me, the next question last year, like my trust and everything, it's no secret what has occurred to me. You think about if you guys could go on social media, Freddy Escobar, before May 5th of 2025, right? We're the strongest union. Guys will say, hey, we didn't have the votes for then Fire Chief Crowley. We knew we didn't have the votes. I went and spoke to city council and said, hey, I know how you're going to vote. I'd like for you to reconsider that because she's getting fired for telling the truth, right? So I went to all the council members, or the majority, not all, the majority of them, and spoke, and they reached out to me and told me how they were going to vote. And I told them, yeah, well, I'm pretty disappointed in it, but I get it. You got a job to do and everything. But I want to let you guys know you're firing the first female, first gay, lesbian, female for telling the truth. You guys got to live with that conscience, not me, right? And that's why when we, as an executive board, decided to sponsor and support her, no other general manager in my career, and I've even asked around to the old timers before there was Chief Manning, he did it, but he was covered, right? He was covered. They couldn't fire him. After him, there was no general manager that stood up against the mayor at that time. So it was priceless when we were able, the message, understaffed, underfunded fire department, right? And we told Crowley, we got you. And I will continue to tell the truth on that because it is the truth. She was fired for telling the truth. And it's crazy to me that they removed her from office on that stuff. And all of it is true. And all of it's going to come out in litigation down the road, or it may come up during this mayoral race. I don't know the timing of it. But she was removed for that. And so all that happened at the beginning of 2025. We're still moving forward. And then when the removal came to me, now, I don't know who your best friend is, but imagine your best friend, not even remotely, to come up to you and say, hey, this is what's happening. This is what you need to do. Can you fix this before I go down this route? That's all would have occurred. I've spent over $60,000 of my own money to prove my innocence because my children, right, told me you have public perception and you got to show it through the social media to show your innocence, or they're going to think you're a thief. Mm. Right? And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I went through their trial. It was 7 days.
That was through the IAFF investigation.
Yep. Okay. And to see my friend, the General Secretary Treasurer, then go up there and not be honest, just broke my heart. He could have stopped this. I mean, this was not about missing receipts, right? They've always had the receipts. I resubmitted receipts. I got copies of receipts. The UFLAC has always had the receipts, right? And I was found innocent of, the 4 big ones have to do in breach of fiduciary duties. And I'd have to get my phone and tell you exactly what they were, but I was guilty of, not proper record keeping, unbecoming of a IAFF member. And I should have known, but I didn't know, right? Those 3, administrative, and they still didn't return me into office. I felt that they should have returned me in office. And so now I'm doing my appeal process on that. And, I'll tell you here first, Ryan Quigley submitted an appeal to keep me off from running for office for next go around. I wasn't even going to run. I might just run now just to stir it up, and because I know I could turn this ship around, but I'd have to get my wife's blessing on it, which, I doubt I'll get. But when you talk about trust, for me as a human being, for me as Freddy Escobar, for me as a 37-year veteran of the LAFD, for me as a veteran from a foreign war, shocked my world. I didn't know who to believe, who to trust, who was my real friends. I didn't, because real friends don't do what occurred to me by the General Secretary Treasurer, Frank Lima. They don't. I don't care. I'll sit down all day long with you. I'll drink water. You could set me a scenario. There's no way when you talk about a best friend, there's no way you'd come up to him and just say, hey, I know you didn't do this, because he knows my character. Fix this. How can we do it? And, one of the things a lot of members don't know is during the conservatorship, when the conservatorship came in, Jason Powell, 2.5 years, didn't do his reconciliation. A lot of members of that executive board, had missing receipts. They redid them. So the double standard, you talk about double standards and everything. This was not about missing receipts. This was a lynching, an administrative removal, because I was very critical of Mayor Bass, and I will continue to be critical about Mayor Bass. You know, unfortunately, Spencer Pratt is not going to be able to be in the mayor's race unless something crazy happens. And now we have a very progressive, look what she's done to LA for the last 4 years, with the socialists running. Those are the two choices.
Yeah, I know. I saw that, and it's a weird thing. I really do feel there's a lot of hidden agendas going on, and I did hear something about there was like a secretary who was in charge of all the receipts, and she got fired, and then took like a USB with all the receipts on there with her.
Yeah, well,
like
she didn't get fired. She's still there, but she was most definitely talked and convinced not to speak on my behalf. But when we go into litigation, you know, she's going to get subpoenaed. Truth is all going to come out. All I want out of this is to make sure this doesn't happen to another member, you know, for whatever political reasons. I think it's wrong.
Do you see what's going on here though? Is like there's rumors, you know what I mean? So I heard something that is not true, and that's why I wanted to have you on here. Is, you know, the rumors create like an image of someone, and that image of someone is now created in someone else's reality. And they're seeing like you, Freddy Escobar, as this based on whatever has been trickled down through the grapevine. That's usually what happens, especially for a very large organization of 4,000 members. And so like, we're all guilty of judgment and rumoring. And that's what's causing so much polarization through factions and just like blame and distrust. And I really do feel that needs to be mended really, really strongly right now. We're thirsty for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's crazy. So I used to say 90% of the rumors are false. I'm at 99.9%. You know, anybody that wants to reach out to me, they could DM me, they could call me, my phone number, all that stuff. I got no problem. I could show them the facts. And, you know, it's very unfortunate. This all could have been fixed by just a simple conversation. And what do they always say? Hey, communications. Hey, could I have done better record keeping? Yeah, absolutely. Like everybody else, you know, so it's unfortunate of what's occurring today, what has occurred, and what's going to occur. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And you could see it, you know, you could see it. You know, you talk about, again, this assign hire. Doug went and threatened the fire chief, saying, hey, if you don't go ahead and open the CTO time, I'm going to go ahead and go public on this. And you know, as a union, you can't do that because the fire chief went to city council and told them, hey, yeah, I need to staff all my resources in your community. Absolutely. They're going to say yes, right? Yeah, when we go in negotiations, all these call loads, all the stuff that we've talked about, how unique it is, we use all that to be the highest paid. Every time we've came out of negotiations under my leadership, we're the highest paid California firefighters with the best benefits. Something to be very proud of. But we've earned it. You guys have earned it. Yeah, you guys deserve it. How do we do it? It's because you guys do the work. When I talk about guys, it's men and women of the LAFD. So as we morph into how do we fix these rumors and everything, there's going to be rumors out there. There's going to be facts. I know there's people out there that don't like me for whatever reason, right? I'm going to go through my trial. I'm going to be proven innocent like I was in my administrative trial. I expect to be successful when I go into litigation. And my personal goal is to make sure this doesn't happen to another union member who does the right thing and tells the truth and gets removed because he doesn't want to take advice from Big Brother, the IAFF. That's what this all comes down to. You know, Frank and I were best of friends, everything. I told him, stay in your lane. Don't come into the LAFD. You got a sweet deal and let it be, right? And he wants to control the executive board, and he couldn't do that with me. He's trying to do it right now through Ryan Quigley, Jason Powell, and Doug Coates, but he doesn't have the majority of the board because they know they've been there. They've seen it. So it's difficult. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there's emotions to get out of the IAFF and CPF. Those are big decisions. And we talk about the CPF. let's talk about the CPF, right? What is the CPF like at our kitchen table, yours and mine? They provide no benefit. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't. IAFF, no benefit either.
Yeah, I don't even think I subscribe to CPF.
No, we do.
I know. I personally
no. We do by paying our dues.
Okay.
So certain part of it goes through there. I've had a lot of battles with them. I mean, before all this stuff, I was maybe thinking about running for CPF, but I wonder if even mentioning that pissed off all the IFF alleged, Team 10th district leadership stuff. They didn't like it because, you got to be full release. The guy that's running CPF right now, Doc Roberts, he's not in full release. So he has to go back to a fire station and he collects a full salary from us, the members. So there's a lot of stuff out there that maybe they don't want me to do, but now I got 18 months. Unless I get hurt, I may stay longer. But I'm coming out. I'm telling the truth on everything. And at the end of it, we'll see what happens, with my litigation. And anybody in the city of Los Angeles have any questions under my leadership, under their expenditures and everything, please reach out to me. I got no problem to show them. And when all this happened, I got to thank Los Bomberos. I call them Los Bomberos. Boyle Heights firemen. They took me in, the C shift. They took a lot of shots, like they would, like any other firehouse with, is it too early? Like my first segment, we're collecting and we're paying. And I go, well, how much I owe? And the guy wrote me out a receipt, $25. $25, so much for meals, so much for house dues, and a date. So I kept it as, all right, hey, thank you for, doing the firehouse humor with me. So that part of it is good because, bantering that way, that helps me cope with the reality of it.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit goes a long way, within the firehouse walls. And I think with that, we're seeing huge generation shift, right now. It's like, it's insane to watch. And I mean, I only have almost 10 years now, so it's like, but I'm seeing from under me, it's a strange generation that's emerging right now. And from like my time frame up until maybe like people who have like 13, 14 years, there's another gap between the hiring freeze that occurred. Then you have that age bracket from like 18 to 25 to 30 years right now. That bracket is going to be, that torch is going to be passed down to whoever wants to, like you said, the succession to what's going to happen within these union members and who's going to take a hold of that torch. Because we have underneath myself, people are saying, I'll work 5 years and then I don't really want to work for the fire department anymore. That's what we're seeing now. Yeah, and it's kind of strange.
It
right?
is. I mean, think about it. I got 30, I'm going to be coming on 38 years. And we had more members leave this last month to LA County firemen medics than ever before. I think collectively in my years of service.
So that's something we've never seen before.
Never seen before. And once you separate from pensions, I believe there's no turning back. Unless something crazy happens, it's very difficult, almost impossible to come back if you're not successful. So when you make that decision, I mean, you're just, think about it, and it's not 1 year firefighters leaving. Man, we got members with 7, 8 years on leaving because of whatever their situation is. Everybody's different. How do we change that? I believe the only way to really change that is we need more resources, because they're saying, hey, I physically and mentally cannot do this on this transportational box every single day. Yeah. And if let's take Fire Station 4, because we run in with them a lot at the jails. Yeah. You need 2 rescues there. Right? You need 2 rescues. Nines has, I believe, 4 total rescues. And they need 4 more. 11's has 2, right? They need 2 more. So you need additional resources to go ahead and share the wealth of these call loads in these demographic areas that is just so heavily populated. That's the true answer to keep personnel here. Now, the generational change, I see it with my own kids. Yeah. I mean, and I do. And I'm like, what are you gonna do after 20 years, right? We just had a member leave a station in Battalion 1, with 10 years. And he cashed out, paid everything out, and, good for him and his family. I just, for me and my generation, we look at our pensions. I'm looking at my drop. I mean, I'm blessed. We're blessed. I'm going to have a very nice lifestyle when I retire. I want to make sure I'm healthy because we all know what happens, after you retire. We don't want to get the big C. We want to stay married. We want to enjoy life. We want to be able to be healthy enough to enjoy the fruits of it. So what I am hearing, though, the guys that do stay, they want, as soon as they get 50 years and they got 25, they're out the door. They're not going to do, all of them aren't going to do 5 years in the drop either. So it is a change of, I think a lot of it has to do with social media. I think a lot of it has to do with, one of my buddies asked me, I'm just picking up golf. Well, how many summers you got left? I'm like, what? I was like, what kind of question is that? He goes, I got a question for you. How many summers you got left? I'm like, dude, I'm like lost. What are you talking? Well, how many good summers do you think you have left ahead of you? I'm like, shit, I hope a lot. I don't know. He goes, well, start thinking about that. So, because, I'm in my late 50s. I'm going to retire before I'm 59. And then you start thinking about it. Bam, you're 69. Bam, you're 70. You're 75. And let's be real, right? After 75, it's a plus.
Wait, how old are you now?
56, 57.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange, right? We have to take a look at all the. What I'm doing is I'm painting a picture for a lot of people who are listening to this, and like just to understand like what's happening internally. There's a generational shift. There's these politics that are just so estranged now, where people are at each other's throats, and it's interesting to see an organizational department such as LAFD function despite all of the lack of, right? We do such a good job. And even after the Palisades thing, it was everyone saw the Palisades as like this, like an illumination of what we do. And then even after that, it was like there's a lot of blame and shame for who's responsible for this.
Which is crazy.
Someone's got to wear this hat. You must wear this hat for being responsible. But in the end, like personally, for someone who was there, water wasn't going to do shit on this. You're just pissing in the wind. Mm-hmm. And even if all the other fire hydrants were active and working, you're still pissing in the wind. You're not going to stop this thing. So for someone to having to take responsibility for that is insane. And it's just, but people don't understand that. People want to have someone responsible, a political figure to see, hey, I'm responsible for this. It's very strange, right?
And it's hard because our membership, it's difficult, and there'll be some that will argue this, right? But I'm very realistic, and I'd like to hear your opinion on it. Would you say the majority of our membership are moderate to conservative?
You mean politically, like Republican? I don't know, man. It's hard to say because, I mean, personally for me, I really don't give a shit about politics. I think it's just a waste of time. I think it's just there's something bigger behind politics. I think there's something else going on, and the people who are in charge, they're just puppets behind hidden agendas behind things. But in the majority city, for the city,
but out of our membership, the majority of people that I'm surrounded are moderate to conservative.
Yeah, I would say that too.
Okay, so it becomes difficult because you talk about, and I think a majority of people would agree with you, they could give a shit about politics. Mm-hmm. I'm involved in it extensively because of the being in the union,
right?
And to play ball, right. And so we have, I mean, you talk about moderate people. I have 4 maybe on the city council. John Lee was the only Republican when I first started, and now he's an independent, so he could get reelected, right? You have him, you have Tim McCosker, you have Monica Rodriguez, and then you have Tracy Park. Tracy Park just won, and they tag her as a Republican, right? And she's just a moderate Dem. Mm. So when you talk about politics, you have to talk about it because that's where we are able to succeed and get what we want. Mm. If you're not in the game, with the union and being in politics and having the relationships and having relationships with management, we're going to get eaten up alive, man. And that's what I'm seeing right now. So how do we get the younger members to come on board? You know, you need people that are dedicated because they're out there. You know, you got your type A's are out there that want to come, but also you got to be flexible because everybody, you know, wants to do online, wants to do Zoom, wants to do it from home. And, you know, one of the things I've learned during COVID and everything, yeah, you could do that, but your attention needs to be focused on that, not that you're at home taking care of your kid or not you're at home doing this. So there's got to be a fine balance of that. And it's difficult. I don't know what the answer is because I know I was on a shitload of Zooms during COVID, a shitload. Yeah. Hey, I'll be right back. I got to go get my kid. Or, hey, I'm on a hike. I'm going to lose you. So even the attention of it is not there. While when we were doing these Zooms, you know, I'd be at the office with my team because it's important to the membership. So you got to have that balance. And I don't know what it's going to be. I have no idea what it's going to be. But we need to restructure what is going on because right now, and I truly believe this, the IAFF did an overreach and destroyed UFLAC. Hands down, at a tune, and I don't know if they told you this, $417,000 was paid for the conservatorship. Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, I think the solution here with even building relationships with these city council members based off politics, things like that, and people's own personal political beliefs and values. When we come back to our humanity of things, that's when all that stuff dissolves. And we come back to the fundamentals of things. Because a lot of what's happened is the fundamental framework had a lot of loose gravel. And to build something like tall skyscrapers on loose gravel is just not going to work. So what I've just succumbed to seeing is basically like anything that is not, the infrastructure that is not truly supporting or the foundation is not truly supporting must collapse. It must crumble to reveal what's really being rebuilt here at a fundamental scale. And over time, if we all come into our humanitarian state, you're talking about these people who are extreme socialists and they're looking at like trying to feed all these homeless people. It's like, dude, that's not going to be a solution here. Come back to the people who are like really helping the community here. Let's focus on them first. The men and women who are putting their lives on line, LAPD and LAFD, let's focus on them first.
Yeah, and that's crazy because, the city council, and there's maybe, like I said, 4 of them that'll agree with us. The issue with let's just talk about homelessness. I think all of us...
Good topic.
Yeah, all of us that work in the field, but I think would agree with this. The women that's out there with the kids, they get the help. They get the resources, they get shelter, they get food, they get taken care of. The majority of the people, and I would say it's 85 to 90%, I've gone up a lot, it's drug induced. They want the next high, right? At all costs. So the city council, far left, and the people that, hey, you got to have a bleeding heart. We have a bleeding heart for them. But at what point is enough? These individuals, and luckily you and I don't have that gene. They're hooked on whatever drug of choice they have. Most of it is fentanyl. Found out is the cheapness of it, what it does to you and everything. The Fenny-Ben, all the stuff that we see every single day, not once a day, not twice a day, 6 to 10 times a day. And it's going to continue until they start enforcing, 4118, which is in the city of Los Angeles, the homeless or unhoused, of where they could live, where they could be and everything. If you look at those 4 districts that I told you, how they enforce it versus a Eunices Hernandez or Isabel Gerardo, it's much different communities. So,
well, people, fentanyl is a buzzword, right? But no one talks about the meth. Like the meth is insane. That's what creates people to go in psychosis and, creating arson fires and things like that. That's what makes people do crazy shit, like stabbing people, getting off a bus. Been on like 3 or 4 of those calls within like 3 months, where you have these meth addicts just going insane. And I think the fentanyl is strange, and so is the meth. And I've traveled all over the world. I've been to Tokyo twice, which Tokyo is like one of the most populated. It's the most populated city in the world. I didn't see one homeless person when I was there. How can that be when we have, another city and it's just ransacked with drugs? And let's just be honest with that. And that's why it was interesting to listen to Spencer Pratt, because he was just saying the truth, man. You got people shitting on the sidewalk, and you're at risk for being stabbed in the neck by a homeless person, hooked on meth. And it's just insane. And most of the fires we were going on were all induced by homeless people. Like some of these wildfires were induced by homeless members, like trying to have a warming fire, whatever the hell it was. But people just fail to see like what's really why. And I've also traveled all over the world to third world countries. I never saw meth. I never saw fentanyl, people overdosing on the streets like we do in LA.
Well, they don't encourage it. And they also, if they're there, they pick them up, they go to jail. Here, we're very loose. Very, very, it's to a point where, working at twos and seeing the rescue and jumping on engine calls, or the engine's gone, going life force, going to the train station between 6 and 8 o'clock. I'm here and I don't know where to go. So these people aren't Angelinos either.
Right.
And when you talk about relationships, I've spoken to the council members, all of them, because I was there when I was running the show. And the ones that are far left and they believe they're from Los Angeles, I said, you're highly mistaken. You need to come around for a little ride along, right? And see that stuff. So you need to educate, the city council for us, supervisors. They got a tough job to do, and they have so much money to do it, but they shouldn't take money away from what we need to get our jobs done. And that's what is occurring now.
Yeah, that was another thing that they're all vagabonds. Like, they're not from here. You ask every single individual, you'll ask them where they're from. Oh, I'm from Idaho, or I'm from this place, or I'm from this place. And that seemed to be a very estranged situation, right? And what I have found too is some of these 6-pack homes, like their rehab facilities, people, they accept insurance, right? They send people from all the different states. They take someone in, like a kid in his 20s, who's addicted to something. He gets clean after 30 days, then leaves, goes on the street, and then relapses. Now he's stuck on the street. And so that's one of the other problems I've seen. That seems to be a revolving thing. It's a different cycle that people aren't seeing is happening. And these homes, they're getting paid out hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Their insurance pays out with these individuals trying to get sober, and they're making a ton of money. But then they're spitting out these individuals into the street, getting addicted again, which I've seen another thing that's happened.
At the end of it is sad. All of it, especially as parents.
100%.
And I have adult kids now, and very fortunate they're not down that path, right? Because it doesn't discriminate. And I remember, just from us talking right now, I was working a sod day at 11's, and we went on something, down off of 8th Street. And it was a redheaded kid, freckles. He had Navy tattoos, looked young. When I was talking to him, he did 2 tours. I said, dude, what are you doing out here, man? You allow us to have the freedom, right? You protect us. Is there anything I could do? And I said, hey, man, let me call your parents. He was from Texas. Called the parents up, and the parents said, we don't want him back unless he's going to go into a care facility. He doesn't choose to go into a care facility. So, a lot of the families have, made their boundaries of saying, hey, we'll take you back, but you need to hit rock bottom before you come back, because there's a lot of destruction happening at their house. So the issue's real. It's a drug issue. It turns into a mental issue, and it's not, we're losing control. They're putting them in now in where my family lives, in the Pico Union area. They tore down a Victorian. They put a 5-story modern apartment building, probably houses 40 people. And when I go there, when I work a Saturday 11s, go by there, go visit my family, I see them all out in the front, So now it's just a big hangout of, it's no transitional. They're just, and we go on the runs. The rescues are going on the runs. So now they're hitting the communities, and I see them all over in Boyle Heights. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what they're going to do. The World Cup is starting this week.
Yeah.
And, fortunately, we're going to roll the dices, and I think it's going to come out all right. Then we got the World Cup. The
Olympics.
The Olympics. We're going to need staffing. It's going to be a challenge for the city of Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, but it's important to talk about these things and discuss them, just off neutrality to see what's really going on and from people hearing our perspectives, because we're there. We're working in the underworld. We're in every single alleyway. We're on every single corner of the street. We see everything. And the thing is, we don't want to come back and bring that stuff home. But what's interesting is over the few years of having the podcast, I've had a lot of interesting people come on here and talk about solutions. And that's really what I wanted to do here is find solutions, despite everyone's victimhood, everyone's opinion, all the keyboard warriors out there. I don't care about you guys, because all you guys are doing is making noise. I want solutions on how we can solve these problems, on addiction, on suicide, on just behavioral health, and how we see ourselves individually, how we see our reality. And what's interesting, what came up with addiction is I've been 3 or 4 episodes on Ibogaine. And a lot of these veterans have come out and I don't know if you ever heard of Ibogaine.
No.
But that was a big movement by some Navy SEALs who basically they would get back from the military after doing 10, 15 years, maybe even 20 years, and they're severely medicated, alcoholics, and to the point where them putting a gun to their head. And some of them had gone out and found this certain medicine called Ibogaine coming from a root called iboga. And that medicine, basically, you do it once or twice and completely rewires your receptors in your body to any type of opiate addiction. And you basically go in, it's a psychedelic, a heavy psychedelic, where you do it once, you're done. But you go into a soul review of your life and you get to see what you're attached to, what's affecting you internally. And you come to an agreement with yourself. I'm going to stop doing this to myself. And you go through this healing process, and these Navy SEALs have talked about it, and they come out clean. They stop all their addictions, completely rewires the brain with any brain trauma. If anyone's listening, you can check out some of the episodes. I had a Navy SEAL come on here and sat in that same seat Freddy's sitting in and talked about it, how it saved his life.
That's wild. Anything that works, right? Is to look into it.
Well, there was just a recent thing Donald Trump had done, having all those Navy SEALs behind him who have talked about this, and they just they're doing more research on it. But that seems to be a solution, and it seems to be there's other things that we're capable of beyond our addictions, beyond our subjective trauma, and beyond our opinions. Because in the end, we got to come back to who we are as human beings. And I think that's really seems to be something to look at and value. And I've come on here and had so many people explain these solutions, and there's so much to it. There's so much to what we do, and there's so much to. But in the end, I found it's our responsibility of our own life that has to really start there first, and our responsibilities to each other.
Yeah, for sure. At least in the LAFD, I've seen a massive change of wellness, behavioral health, inner soul, making sure you're okay. The sauna has been massive.
Yeah.
The cold plunge, just the working out, all that stuff. And even with our wellness bonus, I think a lot of people are going down that path of that behavioral health of, it's no more, like I said earlier, suck it up, buttercup, everybody's different. Mm-hmm. And let's, before I came here, I played handball last night. I was sore, went for an old man walk, 2.5 miles, sauna, steam room, and there was the cold plunge was at 41 degrees, right? And that just when I got out of there after a minute, just changed me. I felt the change, behaviorally and everything else. And I've been doing it for a while now, and it helps. I support it. Everybody needs to do what is best for them, and everybody's different, right? But you got to have something. If not, you're gonna go crazy, man. That's the reality, because the call load, what's going on at home. Hey, I'm getting recalled, right? And our recall is very simple. You talk to other departments.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
it's bad.
it's bad, and they got a punishment at the end of it, right? Ours is very, very
Up to termination.
yeah, depending on what department. One of the things I want to talk to you about is, ask me any questions, man. I know there's things that you may say, I may not want to ask them. I'm an open book. I'm here to want to be part of this, and I'm humbled. I'm here to answer questions. Anything you want is open game with me. And I thank you a lot, seeing what I've been through. I know I was a captain at 26s there. I mean, I thought I was going to retire out of there, but 69s is looking pretty sweet at the end of my career. But I want to be able to answer if you have any questions, regarding, my removal, regarding the receipts, anything. Anything is fair game, man.
I'm curious about your relationship at home, man. Like how that affected you.
Like I said earlier, I didn't. I always thought it was, solid, but obviously we've had some dark places, like any marriage, right? Ups and downs and everything. But I didn't realize it was, that my wife felt that neglected, that, put in the back shelf, not thinking that she was number one, not, thinking that everybody was before her. And my kids have said that too, not realizing that. So, because a lot of times they grew up on the phone, going to baseball games, coaching, doing all that stuff. So I never let it go. Never had that peace. But part of that is why I was successful too. So at home, I'm doing much better, right? And that's why I said this could have been a blessing, because I didn't realize I was in that abyss. Truly didn't realize that. I really enjoyed what I was doing. I thought, bringing good salaries, everybody's happy, she's happy, but I didn't check at home,
Yeah, I mean, some of the big topics on here has been relationships.
Yeah.
And how we connect with our home life. Because there's a huge disconnect when we come home, and we tried to just reset ourselves to make sure we're not running the house like a firehouse.
Oh yeah.
And our like my wife tells me, like, I'm not a soldier. You can't talk to me like that, and it's like you treat me like I'm a soldier sometimes, and I can't act like that. And so there's just been so many conflicts in the house where I have to look at myself and make some changes, and so it is important to talk about how we can relate to each other with our relationships at home.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I also took, I see a therapist, one of our doctors, one of our 4 doctors, I see and talk to them about it, and also like, hey, I want to move forward. How do I just completely just check out of the union, let's say, and move forward, and whatever happens, happens. If they fail, they fail. But that's not my personality. I want them to succeed, just like I want you to succeed. Guys are going for engineer. I want all you guys to be number one. Put the time in, put the work in, put the effort in. So I want everybody to succeed, because if you succeed, we succeed. So it's just a formula of succession. But at some point, you got to walk away. And I want to be able to walk away. I mean, I'm not happy the way I'm walking away, obviously, right? But I'm going to continue to fight. Not only that, clear my name, but also to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody. It's not the way I wanted to go, but it's the way I'm going to go, as far as, for me and my wife and my family, but mostly for my wife, right? And so all these fruits of retirement, our pension and all that, that's more hers than it is mine, in my opinion, right? Because the real work is done at home.
Yeah.
And the kids, and be able to do all that stuff. So the relationship is difficult. Like what I could tell the audience that's listening, from an OG, I guess, I'm starting to become an old goat, is, part of leadership trait. What do they say? Communication is the key. I believe we don't communicate at home enough. I was not the guy saying, hey, this is the kind of run I went on. I just never talked about it. Just went on, okay, what do we got? Especially when you're raising kids and doing sports, coaching and all that stuff, to balance. And then you're trying to date your wife. I
Right.
mean, go on a date. Like, that's what I meant, right? So
Yeah.
that part of it is difficult. And really what I could tell the members and everybody listening is there's resources out there. There's professionals, there's marriage therapists, and be honest with them. And then be honest with yourself. Even before I got here, I got a one-way ass chewing, like I got to self-check myself. So you get those, right? And they're not easy conversations to have. And I think if I had what I'm doing now, I believe I would have been a better father as well to my kids. My kids still had a good life, but you could always do better, right? So that part of it's hard, man. That part of it, I think, in the fire service, 60% of marriages fail. It's a fucking large number, man.
Yeah.
I'd like to fix that, right? And that there's that balance of new generation. It's that balance of, hey, I'm just here to work 10 days. Well, not really, because we did raise our right hand for some additional days. That's just the reality of it. What's excessive? So that commitment, if you make a commitment to yourself, to your children, to your wife, and do that communication from the get-go, you'll be okay, right? And it's hard because my wife worked. She had her own, career, her own profession still, but she stayed home and was a full-time mom. When we were home, think about it. If you work any form of sod, you're home, right? You're home half, okay, minimum, depending how many sod days you work. So if you're working 5 sod days a month, bam, you're only home half the time.
Yeah.
So anything over that, now you're you're really not home.
Yeah, it's hard, right? It's hard to live a life when you're not at home. But at the same time, like there's always balance with everything. We make it work. And that's the part where we start to see cooperation and continuity within a home life. And now you can be a FaceTime dad, but that's just still not enough.
Right.
But I'm curious, like, out of all the conflicts with the union you've seen over time, like how much of that percentage you think is built off fear?
And it's interesting. I mean, I think all of it is. Honestly, man. But it's fear of like individuals, though.
Yeah.
It's when I decided to run for president, they were not happy with the leadership of then President Gamboa, right? And so we, as an executive board, they sat him down and said, hey, we still want you on the team. We just don't want you to be the band leader, because he was good, but he didn't want to take that. So that, that fear of not being in charge, like for me, I'm like, okay, hey man, this is my last hoorah. Who wants it? How do you guys want to do this? You guys tell me. I'll give you my recommendations, what I think should do it, and then we'll move forward from it, right? And let's rally around, because this is a good successful formula for it. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. And so when you talk about all this stuff that's happening, it's all fear. I think all of it is.
Yeah.
And it's fear of, like you said, political power, egos, I guess, all that stuff. I like to think that I'm not an egotistical guy. I was pretty humble. Hey, I'm the president. I was never that guy. I was about the executive board. The executive board run. You guys tell me. So you gotta have that. Without that, that's just simple, successful formulas. If you don't have that, you're not gonna be successful. If you're gonna run the dictatorship, well, I mean, you've been on the job 10 years. Tell me how that shit works out at a fire station with dictatorship.
Don't work.
It don't work. People are going to leave. In today's fire department, you got to have a balance, because you talk about, fear and everything. One of the things that go a little sideways on you right now, I worked the sod day at 92s right before annual. And I think it's like your captain's Brock.
Yeah. Brock
Yeah.
through. Yeah.
What they did upstairs was phenomenal. Right. I said, hey, whose idea with this? And they told me, the sleep deprivation, the sleepiness. And I talked to the guys. Hey, I'm just curious. Right. A guy who took a vision and everything. And there was a fear of how I'm sure there's a fear like, hey, I'm changing all upstairs, right, of what traditional is to hey, let's put a sauna up there. We got all these dorms. Guys are able, and I talk to the guys all love it.
Yeah.
Right? So you talk about not only fear in the union, but it's fear of, hey, should I do this at this station? And what's everybody going to think about it? I'm just one guy. So I think all of our decision making is built off of fear. And when people start attacking, is fear. And they're wanting to have that power for whatever reason. Like for me right now, what I'm fearful of is that this union is not going to get back to its feet to be what it was before the conservatorship came in. The conservatorship came in and did an overreach. So, I mean, you're on the job, right? How loud and how powerful. And when I talk about powerful, I'm talking about, hey, I'm able to have a conversation with these decision makers on what the best thing is for my membership, right? We're able to do that. I mean, to pat the back of the executive board, we were pretty powerful, right? Before May 5th of 2025. Come after that, look what the conservatorship, look what has occurred since then.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the two things firefighters don't like is change and the way things are. So I think fear of change, everyone has that, but what I'm getting at here is like, we don't want to make decisions based off fear, right? We just don't.
Yeah.
We want to make decisions based off respect
and
based
facts.
off trust, facts,
facts.
Objectivity. And that creates resilience within like a crew or like a membership or a department, right? And so what I want is to have people just look at things differently, look at the core issues of things, making decisions based off your own personal interest. It doesn't help everyone else just because you don't get what you want and then everyone throws a fit.
Yeah, and it's different. Like in the firehouse, we all know what occurs Monday through Friday, right? We know what happens Saturday or Sunday. And I mean, I could probably in one hand have a true day where we had a holiday Rudy Tooty on a Saturday, Sunday in my career.
Yeah.
Right? It really is, man. It's, because there's fine balance. There's a balance of it. And so as we move forward and through this new generational, I think you're going to see more of a shift in that because they truly, truly want that balance of, hey, we're going to drill hard on Saturday, right? We're up Monday. Let's just do Mondays and chill, right? There's going to be a balance of that. And the reason I say that is because that era is eventually going to be taking charge of the front office. They're going to be your chief officers. They're going to be your command staff. So they're going to have more of an understanding of it. Where right now, we still have, little up and downs of guys from the 80s, but this shift is coming. The shift is coming.
Yeah, I think we all feel that. And I think sometimes each station has its own culture, not even its own culture, their own laws. And if you don't abide by those laws, I mean, you're going to get shunned and just have that, that transfer slid over the kitchen table. And that's how things used to be, man. Like if you just didn't click with everyone and click in that culture, it's just, these are the laws you got to abide by. They're hidden laws that we're not seeing, but those who cue into it, they're really adaptive to those things. They can figure it out. It's strange, right? You can't just make everyone happy. And it's not about happy. It's about cohesion. And that cohesiveness is what creates some type of coherence. Coherence is like we're finding a sense of balance, right? And harmony. But that's where true leadership starts to evolve from, is where if someone who's in a leadership role, they're sitting in the seat, they don't see cohesion or coherence, that's something they have to reevaluate. Hey, this is something we can see from a bird's eye zoomed out perspective, like what's going on here? What can we do to fix it? What can we do to resolve, hidden resentments or whatever it may be? These are things to talk about within the four walls, right? So I am curious to, I would say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you say you're feeling a sense of betrayal with the union and like all the people involved with that?
The union itself,
1 to 10.
1 to 10. If you're talking about membership and everything,
yeah, all of it.
Let me shift it a little. The betrayal, and the reason I say because the betrayal from the IAFF and GST Lima specifically, a 10 plus. Hands down. A friend does not do what he did. No fucking way. Hands down. Through the union, I've been disappointed, probably a 5 or a 6, because during the conservatorship, I was very, hey, don't let them do this, don't let them do this, because look what's happening. All this has occurred because they allowed it to happen. The union side of me giving my heart and soul to it, and this is where the union side, heart and soul, I'm a 10, because I mean, I sacrificed everything my wife has told me, everything my kids have told me. You know, I didn't put them number 1 or number 2 in their eyes. In my eyes, I thought I did because I was providing for them. I was doing this. Hey, she'll handle that. But I'm a 10 in disappointment from the union side of it for not fighting harder for me, not being loud, because they know I didn't take any money. They know we were changing a lot of stuff. They know there was no misappropriation of funds. So that part of it is just heartbreaking to me. They know that I should be in office. They know that it was an overreach and nobody's speaking out or pounding the drums because they have some form of fear that they're going to come after them. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on kitchen table talk, on this app floor talk, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hey, bring it. I have nothing to hide. From day one, I've told everybody I have nothing to hide. And I continue to have that. The results continue to come out that way. Mm. So for me, it's a 10. I know we went with GST Lima 10, and then, you know, the union was a 5 or 6, but the totality was a 10. I know is because when I talk about the totality, them not coming out and being louder of what wrong is. And it's wrong. I mean, what's happening today, I mean, it is, I mean, I could probably be a consultant, go out there and do that stuff if I wanted to when I retire, but when I'm done, I'm done. I'm not going to work. The only thing you maybe see me is that I surf, so I'll be at C Street, and if I get a little job, I love gambling. Instead of gambling, dealing on the other end and seeing, I may do that, right? But I have no desire to work or anything like that. The union, I thought it was going to be my passion into retirement and how to make a union successful about relationships and everything. I mean, right now we have an acting president that went to a fire station and said, relationships don't matter. Just blows my mind away. So all the stuff that's happening, it just breaks my heart of where we were. The union has crumbled and it's crumbling and it's going to continue to crumble until we get change. And it's unfortunate what has occurred that could have been resolved by simple communication.
I mean, betrayal hurts, man. It really does. Been betrayed many times, you know. But you know, like when I have a mentor that really gives it to me, man. Like, and it's not like therapy or anything like that, but it's just like the truth, you know. And working through betrayal wounds, you know, something she had told me that really hit hard was she says, in the end, we betray ourselves. And what she told me basically was like, hey, you need to take a look at your role in the story. You know, and like when she told me that, it freaking just broke me because I had to take my responsibility on how I create, you know, circumstances in my life. And that's what it came down to. The only reason why I'm mentioning this is like the sinister strategies we create. Like there's something underneath it all. Like we create our own circumstances. And in the end, we can blame or shame the circumstances. But when we take full responsibility for how that shows up in our life, it's like, why did we create this for ourselves? You know, and taking that full responsibility. And so what I'm sending back to you is, you know, given you're pouring out your heart and soul to this union, you know, what do you think for yourself? Like what responsibilities really affected you as you started to take your role in the story, despite the allegations and all these things? What was that role that you played in the story?
For me, it was all about making sure the membership knew that I didn't abuse or take their money. Mm. right? None of us did. That's the part that just broke my heart because, the perception. I mean, LA Times, Channel 7 News.
Yeah, all of it.
All of it. I mean, it sounded like I stole $1 million,
Yeah.
$800,000. Fucking come check out my bank account, man. Right? So all that stuff. And when you know that you didn't do that, I'm like, oh no, F no. Let's move forward. And then now I'm going back of the IAFF leadership telling me I'm making it worse for myself. I go for fighting for my rights. That's when I knew I was in trouble internally. Like, oh no, this shit ain't making sense. So there's too much coincidence. This was a political hit on it. And for me, I challenged the guys. I said, hey man, come look. That's what's been good. I mean, the $60,000 I've spent and I'm spending more suck. I work a lot of overtime, got to pay the bills to pay for these attorneys. That's terrible. But the result in the administrative hearing was successful. I'm hoping the IAFF listens to my appeal process and reinstates me. I truly believe I get reinstated, I could bring this union back and in the short amount of time and fix or patch up to move forward for 2027 with not only hopefully a bond that has changed, they got 66%, but also get ready for negotiations. Prioritize that stuff and hand it off, right? That was the whole entire goal. If you guys wanted me to run for director, I'll run for director. If you want me to stay out, I would have stayed out. I would have done whatever the executive board asked me to do because I've given to them everything, and I was going to give it to them in a silver platter with the fucking grand slam. And now it's not that, right? Now we're hurting. I think anybody they'll say it's hurting. I mean, it's become childish, right? And it's egos, it's fear. You got individuals running this organization, in my opinion, that should not be running it, that don't have the relationships, and we all see it. And how much is enough? I don't know that. That's for the membership to vote and decide. But at some point, does it affect me? Yes. Does it financially affect me? No. It affects me more than finances because I see it in the member's face every single day. Like I got one for you. Say you make captain, you got a good member coming up to you, and the guy's just, he does the right thing. Hey, Cap, I say yes to my recalls, and these guys bang in. Nothing happens to them. When's enough is enough. What's your answer to that?
I mean, you got to take just responsibility for your own stuff.
Yeah.
If you feel like you are doing too much, then you're doing too much. But at the same time, like, so for instance, you cannot take responsibility for someone else's actions. Like in the end, that's how it works, right? Yeah. But there's no, if you're complaining about someone else not getting disciplined for them not doing it, then what am I supposed to say to that person?
It becomes difficult because, a lot of these are legacy kids and everything.
Yeah.
And we had a member at a general membership meeting say, I never take one recall. I got a great relationship with my daughter, and I don't care who I fuck. That was said at a general membership meeting. I 100% think it's wrong, right? So there's got to be a balance. And 100%. I don't know what the answer is, but what that member said is not the answer.
Yeah.
Right? That's wrong because there's no brotherhood or sisterhood. We talk about brotherhood and sisterhood, right? It's said a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's something based on self-interest.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and fear.
It's not caring about anyone else.
Yeah. And so when you talk about, how disappointed I am with the union, I talk about, are we really brothers? Would you do that to your blood brother? Will you do that to your blood sister?
Well, that culture's been severed.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone.
That's not existent.
Yep.
So something that's severed, how do you mend that again? Is really like the core issue.
Well, and so we talk about mending and everything. let's just say this bond passes by 66%. The city's going to get a shitload of money for the fire. The city council cannot touch this money. That's how tight it's written. Okay? So we start doing classes. Okay? At what point do we stop hiring to make sure the members work some form of overtime? Or do we put pool guys? When I came on the job, we had pool guys. So each task force and even triples had pool guys. So the pool guys would sit there, and whenever somebody called in sick, they'd grab their bags and go. Very, very limited overtime. Very limited. So in 1989, very limited. The guys would work medicals, 4 hours or 8 hours of medicals. So there's got to be a balance. Okay, hey, we're staffing. Do we want to staff it all the way when the guys are only working 10 days a month? Because guys are happy if they work their 2 to 4 to 6 sod days. When I was doing this, we had 1,200 members, I believe, worked 6 or more sod days, roughly. It's a lot of members.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right? So 6 or more, you're gone away from home half the time. So there is that balance, and I don't know what the answers are. I'm not going to be making those decisions. That's for the next future leaders to do, but there's going to be a balance. This measure passes, the floodgates are going to open up for staffing.
Yeah.
And then, okay, how do we control the staffing? You got to have relationships with management, got to have relationships with city council to control that. If not, we're just going to have an abundance amount of members. You're going to work your 10 days a month, and there's going to be no more crying about recall. But what are they going to cry about?
Crying about overtime. So I say you can't please everyone,
Right.
right?
Yeah, so
Just
there's gonna be a balance, right? I don't know what the answer is. So to your question, at the end of it is, if I was to do a mean average of how disappointed I am with the union, is 10% for not fighting for me and my family. Most importantly, my family, on the allegations that were brought to me, because that board knows me. That board knows I'm not about that. That has been proven. And I got to give kudos, to the Chung Ho's, the Dave Riles, Kent Kofflers, Rich Ramirez, that are fighting, that are continuing to say, hey, this is wrong, right? And there is a separation on our executive board. Absolutely there is. As a president, the reason I was successful is there was nothing that I did without executive approval. Nothing. No way, no how, nothing. Zero. I sent, I believe, one president message out. I believe one. And that was to congratulate and thank, but maybe two, the election committee and also the negotiation team. From my heart on what we were able to provide for the members. That was it. I never weaponized it or anything. It's about the direction that the board gives the president as a reflection of the majority of the membership.
It's a lot, man. It's a lot to ingest, but it was nice having you on. And,
all right. Well, I thank you. Hopefully,
we're hitting up 2 hours right now, so I'm sure you got a lot of information out for everyone to listen to and to hear your perspective on everything. And that's what I wanted to have you on here for, just to hear Freddy Escobar's experience. Like what's really going on with Freddy, and like what's really necessary for everyone to hear.
Well, I thank you. And one of the awesome parts about being the president and being able to, and I remember when you reached out regarding your podcast and what we were doing with behavioral health and saying, hey, man, give them the green light. Let us know what you want. And we were able to contribute, what you needed to kick this off. And for me, it's kind of like a member had a vision, took it and ran with it. Right. And look what you've created.
Yeah. The cameras here are all union provided. So
yeah. Well, but the other part is more kudos to you and thank your wife and your daughter for allowing you to do this, because doing what I did and not really recognizing my wife and my kids is something that I am trying to, give back to the members who take that extra step. The guys that do the relief, and you're doing your part in behavioral health or just getting the message out. And, you're not getting paid for this.
No.
You enjoy it. And
yeah.
I mean, I thank you. And I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I'm at the end of my career, man. I thank you. Like I said, it's going to be a great ending. I wish it was different, but the man upstairs, and I'm not a biblical man, but I do believe, gave me a reason, and I thank you for having me on.
Of course, Freddie. Thank you for coming on, brother. And like just the courage to just speak your voice, man. A lot of people don't have that, and it takes a lot of guts to just speak your voice and just to be open and honest with anything that goes on. You know what I mean? So much respect to you, my brother, and thank you for just always being there for what I've seen and felt. You know, personally, I've always felt you had the members back, and then I really do feel like there is always a rhyme or reason for everything that happens. And I always respect people who have just paved the way, you know, with whatever they've done prior to the job, and also, you know, as they have set the tone for how things are ran. And you've done that for sure, Freddie. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, and have a blessed day here in Long Beach, man.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Love you guys. Take care.